Hello, this is Angela from Natural Living Alchemy. Welcome to my channel. Now today's video is actually a follow-up to one that I did at the beginning of the year regarding freezing milk kefir grains. So I will send you to check that one out if you're curious on how to freeze them. But this video is going to be talking about how to defrost them so that we can go back to receiving all of the wonderful health benefits that milk kefir has to offer. I do have a couple different videos on milk kefir that I will also have linked in the description box below this video if you want to check them out. So there is a video on how to culture milk kefir, how to freeze it, and I also have one on how to culture cream with milk kefir to make ice cream. So one other thing that you are going to find in that description box is the full written blog article that is meant to accompany this video that does go into some more detail. So let's first talk about what happens when we freeze milk kefir grains. Well, the freezing will put the grains in a state of suspended animation, and this means that their metabolic activity is slowed down. Milk kefir grains are essentially a SCOBY, which just means a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, and it is encased in proteins, sugars, and lipids, which is just another way to say fats and oils. So frozen yeasts are viable at temperatures below -4 Celsius or 24.8 Fahrenheit, but they can survive up to temperatures of -20 Celsius or -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Bacteria can withstand temperatures of -20 Celsius or -4 Fahrenheit without any significant damage. The equipment that you are going to require to defrost your grains is you are just going to need some organic whole milk with no added preservatives. If you can find raw, even better, because then you can skip some of the steps that we'll have to do. But whatever you do, do not use ultra filtered, ultra pasteurized, nothing ultra. You just want regular old whole milk. You'll also need some frozen kefir grains, and then a non-metal strainer, non-metal utensils, and a non-metal bowl, because kefir doesn't really like metal all that much. And then you will need a sterile mason jar ring lid and some paper towel. So I will show you how we started from some defrosted grains and ended up with this. So day one begins by sanitizing one mason jar that you're going to use just for day one. We will be switching into a bigger size jar in a couple days once this first step is complete, but don't worry, we will get there. So you're going to first off start by taking your jar. Now that it has cooled off, but I did have this in a 220 degree oven for 20 minutes. And then you just want to find your kefir grains that you froze. I had to dig mine out of the bottom of the freezer. I thought I lost them. So we're just going to pour these into your jar. Don't worry about the powdered milk that you have covering them. We will rinse that off after this step is complete. So now you just want to take enough milk and just pour it over your grains until they are covered. I ended up using just over a quarter cup, and this is just regular milk I poured right out of the carton. Now, I do find it easier to pour it into a smaller container like this as opposed to just dumping the 4-liter jug of milk over top of here. I find it just a lot easier to control, but hey, you do you. Maybe you're better at some of these things than I am. So you just want to allow everything to be covered up. You're going to put your lid on, and then you're just going to store this in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours. And we are just waiting for all of our kefir grains to just really defrost and to start absorbing some of this liquid because we did defrost them before freezing. Okay, so we're just going to throw this in the fridge, and I will be back in 24 to 48 hours to show you what we do next. It has been about 48 hours since I first started defrosting my kefir grains, and as you can see, I now have 2 jars. Why? What happened? Okay, so when I was looking through the freezer for my dehydrated grains, I came across a bunch of old ones that I had frozen. Now, these had been in there for about a year and a half, okay, give or take, and I froze them in a completely different way. Instead of dehydrating them, I did let them dry out at room temperature. I want to say for maybe 24 hours, and then I actually put some milk over top of them, and I threw them in the freezer. Now, this is going against what I had said in the dehydrating kefir grains video, because I have done it that way with great success. But I wanted to see what would happen with these older ones that kind of are just going against all of the things that I said to do before. So all I did for these ones is I just dropped this little frozen hunk of grains into my jar. Same thing, I just put some fresh milk over top to cover, and I let them sit in the fridge. I didn't have this wonderful idea to try to do both until after I was done recording day 1. Okay, so we are going to learn together, and we are going to see what happens with these different ways of freezing kefir grains and then how they're going to defrost. So let me move my camera, and I'm going to show you what we do next. Let's start with our dehydrated jar of grains. So what you're going to need is a little bowl and then just a little mesh or plastic strainer. I know mine's got a hole in it. It came like that from Amazon. Sometimes you get what you get. So what you're going to do is just take these grains and just pour them through your strainer. Make sure you get them all. And as you can see, they are starting to puff up again and just look a little less dehydrated and dried out. So what you're going to do is take a little bit of fresh milk, and you just want to rinse them off. And then once they're rinsed, you're just going to put them in a clean and sanitized jar. And then you just want to put enough milk to just cover them up. And then I just like to give it just a little stir to make sure that all of the grains are underneath the surface of the milk. And then you're going to take a piece of paper towel, and this is going to work as our lid. So I like to just use the ring still, and then just screw it on, just like that. So let's do the other one. So we'll start again by emptying our jar. Probably should have emptied the jar or the bowl of milk first, but I didn't. So then we are just going to rinse these with a little milk. And then we are just going to discard that milk. You really don't want to drink it. So as you can see, these ones are looking a little bit fluffier than our ones that were dehydrated, because they weren't dehydrated in quite the extreme amount as the first ones. So now we'll just put these in a clean, sanitized jar. And then you're just going to cover these with milk. And again, same thing, paper towel over top. And the reason that we are using the paper towel is because we are wanting to start grabbing some of the different beneficial bacteria and yeast that are just floating around in the air. We kind of want them to be in our cultured dairy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to leave both of these on the counter for 48 hours. Okay, and then I will meet you back here and I will show you what they look like and then what the next step is. So we have hit the 24-hour mark of step 2, and I just wanted to check in and see how our grains are doing. So I did notice that our ones that were dehydrated, here, I'm just going to open this up and see if I can show you, but they're beginning to stick out above the top of the jar, and if you look, they are actually starting to be a little bit more active, and they are starting to thicken up the milk. So what we're going to do is just put a little bit more in here just so that they are fully submerged. Perfect. Just a little more. Excellent. So then we're just going to put our lid back on and allow them to sit for another 24 hours. And while we're here, let's just check and see how our other ones that are doing that I had frozen incorrectly, and let's see what they look like. So not too much activities happening here. Nothing's really thickening up. Well, actually, I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick it up, but at the very bottom, it does seem to be thickening up just a little bit. So that's good. We're going to just continue letting it do that. Perfect. And the grains are still looking nice and fluffy and good. So we will put this cover back on, and I will see you back here in 24 hours. It's been another 24 hours, so this has been a total of 48 hours on this step, and let's see what we got. We are going to start off with our grains that were dehydrated. And this is what you are looking for. We are really thick. We have cultured this milk. We don't want to drink it because it's not ready, but this is a really good first step. So what we are going to do is we're just going to empty these grains out. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of milk and just rinse these off. Okay, so as you can see, we are now just nice and fluffy, and this is what we were looking for. These grains look way more alive than what they did before. So what we're going to do is take another clean sanitized jar, and we're going to throw our grains in here. So now that your grains are in here, you are going to take your milk that you have properly prepared, and the way that you would do that is take your milk, put it obviously in a pot on the stove. You want to raise the temperature up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you're going to cool it off down to 110 at least. Okay, you don't want to put anything warmer than 110 degrees Fahrenheit over these grains. That's too hot. Perfect. So we are just going to take our same piece of paper towel. You can get a clean one if you want, but this one is, well, it is still clean and dry. So we are going to put our ring over top. And then I'm just going to allow this jar to sit on the counter and just monitor it, because it's going to need time to culture all of this dairy. And that could take anywhere from 24 to, I've had it take as long as 70 some hours, 3 days. Okay, so we're not going to rush it. We're going to let the kefir do what it is doing at the pace that it wants to do it at. Okay, so let's just put this one aside. And now I want to talk about our other kefir grains, the improperly frozen ones. Okay. So let's just move some of this stuff out of the way. Now, let's check out these ones. These ones are definitely not looking as active as what our first ones were. I was almost this close to giving up on them, but then I smelled them. Okay, that sounds weird. So the smell that is coming off of these is, it almost smells like my sourdough starter. I don't know if I had them too close together. I don't really think that that would have created that kind of sweet smell on this. That's kind of where we're at. So what I want to do is we are just going to change this milk, because keep in mind, it has been sitting on my counter for about 48 hours now. And while it is not culturing like the other one was, it doesn't smell rotten or a bad kind of sour. So we're going to just change the milk in this one, give them a new jar, and then we're just going to keep observing and monitoring just to see what happens. And then we'll just put this lid back on. And we're just going to give it a little bit more time to see if maybe they are going to get more active, and so that they can start producing delicious milk kefir for you to enjoy. But we'll see. So we're going to leave these for, I'm not quite sure how long, and I will be back when it is time to show you what we do next and how they're doing. These kefir grains have now been in this jar for 48 hours, and I will show you what they look like. So this is what we're looking for. Now, keep in mind, we are not going to be drinking this ferment. So what we need to do is now separate our kefir grains out from our jar. So yeah, now if you can look how thick everything is, and everything's kind of sitting at the top, all of our grains, which is good. This is a good sign of what we were looking for. So as you can see, we've actually only fermented the top portion. So we are going to put these in a clean jar. Actually, let's grab a longer wooden spoon, and I do want to just kind of get the bottom, oh, there we go, out of the jar here, and just clean that out just to make sure there aren't any grains that were left on the bottom. Now, only because I ran out of milk, because I have to go to the store, I want to give these a rinse. So I just took a little bit out of the milk that I was going to pour over them, that I had properly prepared. But you could just do this with just regular milk to rinse them off. So I have a clean jar here, and I'm just going to put our grains back in the jar. Just like we did last time, we just want to put our freshly prepared milk over top. Now that you've witnessed my smooth pouring skills, I'm only going to be filling it up this much because I want to make sure that I have enough milk for the 2 jars. Okay, so we're just going to put that one aside, and next I want to show you what our jar looks like that after I've added that sugar, and that sugar had about 48 hours to just really sit in here. Look at what we have now. Okay, so that is exactly what we were looking for in the first place. So we are going to strain these ones out. So now we're just going to give these grains just a little rinse with some milk. So now we're going to place these in their own clean, sanitized jar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give both of them a stir. I'm not sure if I actually did that last time, so that's okay. So we're just going to stir both of our jars. We will replace our paper towel lid. We are now going to allow these to sit on the counter for another maybe 48 hours, and we will check back in and see how they're looking. But I've made sure to put this elastic band around our jar that had the dehydrated grains, and then this is the jar that had just our improperly frozen grains, just so that I can make sure that I don't mix them up later. But I will see you back in a few days and I'll show you what we've got. Another 24 hours has elapsed, and let us see what we've got. So we are going to just start off with our improperly frozen grains. And as we can see, the kefir grains are just kind of like on the top, but I just wanted to come and give this a little bit of a stir. So it is a little bit thicker. I don't know if you can really tell with just stirring it on the camera, but it is definitely a little bit thicker than what it was yesterday. So we are just going to give this a stir. See how much that it's actually coating the spoon now? So I do believe that that's a really good sign. We are just going to put our lid back on, and we are going to allow these to sit for, I'm going to monitor them for another 24 and then see where we are at. Now I want to check our other grains that were dehydrated. Okay, so we're just going to grab a clean spoon and we're going to give this one a stir and just see. So yeah, again, like it did the other day, it just kind of cultured the very top stuff, and the stuff underneath, not as much. But it is definitely just seeming a little bit thicker than what it was, and that's a good sign. So we are going to allow these to sit for another 24 hours, and we're just going to monitor them. I do think that the first set that I had let these sit in the full jar of milk, I probably should have stirred them around that 24-hour mark instead of just waiting the full 48 hours. So that's what I'm going to suggest that you do. But we are just going to put our lid back on here because they are not done. And we are just going to let them keep going, and we will see what these ones look like in 24 hours as well. We are back. It's been about 6 hours since our last check-in, and I just wanted to show you what's happened. So if you look now, our kefir grains, this is looking very over-cultured at this point. So if you can see, here's our whey that is separated out, and here's the rest of our cultured dairy. So this is exactly what we are looking for it to do. So now we are just going to empty this out, and we're going to put it in a new jar with some clean and fresh milk that I have properly prepared. So let's begin by just emptying this out. After everything is nicely rinsed off, we're going to just take another clean jar, put these grains in there. And then we are just going to cover these with our prepared milk. Perfect. So just give everything a nice stir, put your lid back on, and then we are just going to continue to observe them and then see how they're doing. We are back with another update, and this time it's been 24 hours, and our improperly frozen grains, this is ready to change out. Now, I'm not quite sure if you can pick it up, but there are these kind of fine crack lines going vertically. That is a good sign of showing us that all of this milk has been cultured. This one is a little bit over cultured. I probably should have done this about 2 hours ago, but I had class this morning and I figured the kefir could wait because we aren't going to be drinking this one anyway. It's okay that it's a little bit over cultured, but you do want to try to catch it before it gets to be over cultured. Now that our grains have been strained out and rinsed with fresh milk, we are just going to put these in our clean jar. And then we are just going to add fresh, properly prepared milk over top. Then we're just going to give these a stir. Now, before I put the lid on, I understand, we're going to talk about foam for a second. So I know that this looks pretty foamy on the top of this. That's just because while I heat up the milk, I am constantly stirring it, and that's just adding more air into the milk. But there's another kind of foam that you do want to watch out for, and that is the one that is going to be kind of appearing just on the top of your cultured dairy jars. This is actually a good sign. Okay, this is just telling us that these grains are reactivating in the way that we want them to. Now, so this video does not end up being about, 3 hours long watching me continuously change the milk and rinse these grains off, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back in once these are completely ready and reactivated. As you can see, the steps that you will need to take, okay? I don't think you need to watch me do them every single time. And if you were wondering why I had all of this extra milk, if I'm not going to be changing these grains out, that's just because I'm going to be making my own yogurt when I'm done filming this. If that is something that you also want to learn how to do, comment down below this video and I will record a tutorial on how you can culture your own yogurt at home. But enough about that. I will see you back once these are fully activated and ready to go, just so you see what they're going to look like. So all you'll need to do is just continue to follow those steps until your kefir grains have cultured the milk in the entire jar. And as you can see, here was our properly frozen grains, and here were our improperly frozen grains. Now, these ones were just actually finished up today. I didn't really think that you wanted to watch me strain them out again because you watched that a bunch of times. Okay? Now, one thing that I did notice is our improperly frozen grains were actually ready before our properly frozen grains. Now, one reason for this is when these ones were frozen was at a time where my kefir was very healthy. It was like almost doubling the amount of grains almost every single time that I fermented. They were healthy, they were strong. I had too much. So that is when I just kind of threw some into the freezer improperly before I learned how to actually do it. What I know now, if your grains are healthy, it doesn't really matter how much you are dehydrating them. And actually, the more dehydrated grains did take longer to rehydrate, but they ended up working just as well. So whatever you want to do, however you want to do this for yourself is fine. It will work. Because we're going to think about something else for a second here. Milk kefir grains have been around for thousands of years. And they all kind of came from the same place. So essentially, the grains in here, their ancestors were thousands of years old. We're probably not going to damage them that easily. They are pretty resilient. But we do want to exercise some caution. Another thing you're going to want to take into consideration is the temperature of your room. You're going to want it to be between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius or 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature is too warm, fermentation will happen faster. If it's too cold, it will just slow it down. Now, if you wanted to make sure that you are staying at a consistent temperature, you might want to consider using something like a yogurt maker that you can set the temperature on, just to make sure it doesn't fluctuate too much. Now, it is not uncommon for kefir grains to take a few uses in this way before they start producing kefir appropriately again. So it can take 2 to 5 batches for the grains to become fully active. Now, I can tell you, okay, so I do have some problems with numbers. I have a learning disability called dyscalculia. It's like dyslexia is with letters. Dyslexia is with letters. Dyscalculia is with numbers and number-related information. I am super bad with dates, but I'm pretty sure these ones took about those 5 different cycles in order to fully activate and culture the way they're supposed to. These other ones took about 3. Okay? The step in which you need to properly prepare the milk can be skipped if you have access to raw milk. I do not. So I need to just prepare it by raising it to 180 Fahrenheit, cooling it off to 110, and then using it after that. The reason we do this, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but heating it does something to undo part of that pasteurization process. If you notice any signs of mold, you are going to discard your grains immediately. We are not playing around with any type of mold contamination. We do not need to make ourselves sick for no reason. So signs of mold would be fuzzy growths, changes in color or consistency, or changes in odor. So cultured dairy reminds me of yogurt, but it should never smell off. All right. So if you do notice pink, for example, that is never ever a good color for cultured dairy. It's moldy. You're going to need to get rid of it. Now, one thing that I did do is on my dehydrated grains is I actually added that little bit of sugar, and that really just helped the grains take off. They were a lot hungrier and needed to be fed more than just what the milk could give them. So if you're finding yours are not going as fast as you want, just add, I think it was like 1/8 of a teaspoon of sugar, and that was perfect. Do not defrost your kefir grains in the microwave. You are not that busy. And if you are, just start this process sooner. So you need to remember, this is a colony of bacteria and yeast. We don't need to cook them in the microwave. So if you do need to speed it up though, consider maybe just putting the frozen grains in some lukewarm water while they're still in the bag as a last resort. And lastly, just be patient and be persistent, because as long as they are activating just a little bit in that jar, they're going to work. They just need more food and more time. They might just be too hungry. So some signs to look out for to see if your grains are not reactivating properly. So if there is a lack of thickening of any of the milk after 48 hours, change the milk and just observe again. If nothing's happened again after that, there's a possibility that your grains have been damaged and you're going to need to find new ones. If you notice any sort of unpleasant smell or foul odor, like rotten milk, your grains aren't active. Now, with that being said, there was, I don't remember on what day it was one of those days where everything just cultured too quick in here. It did almost smell a little bit sour, more sour, but not rotten. It was still a somewhat pleasant smell, but it was a little bit stronger than the scent that they normally have. Okay, so just pay attention. Anything too foul or unpleasant, just skip it. If you happen to notice an absence of any type of whey separation, just change the milk and observe again. So it might take that few rounds, just depending how frozen your grains were, how long they've been frozen, and just the general health of them. And again, if there's any development of mold or unusual color, they're not reactivating properly. But if there is no signs of activity after a full 7 days, they likely did not survive the freezing or defrosting process, and you will need to find new grains. So be sure to come back in 2 weeks, where I am going to show you how we get whey out of this milk kefir that we've cultured, and that we can use that whey for different ferments. Comment down below if you like this video, and maybe share it with anyone else who you feel might enjoy this recipe. Consider subscribing to the channel so that we can spend more time together and that you don't miss future videos. But I just want to say thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you next time.